All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you for either being here in person or tuning in live stream. Let me turn off my volume here. So we're going to do a class today on power positioning, and this one's going to be a little different in that I'm going to ask for some participation from you guys. So if you're online and I ask a question, if you could just kind of either use the raise your hand function or just get off mute and ask or answer, I guess in this case, that'd be helpful. And I'm going to pick on somebody here for sure. It's probably going to be Carlo because he deserves it. And maybe he'll be kind of like our example of what to do and what not to do. So let me hop into the presentation and we'll send this presentation or it'll be online as well. So but for now you can kind of follow along. Okay, so power positioning. So what does that mean? Basically, power positioning is kind of a mindset. It's not really a marketing tactic, right? So, and you may have heard this sort of phrase in the past, or I may have made it up. I don't know, frankly. Um, but basically, in the luxury world, what you're trying to do is learn the luxury lifestyle and what's important to people with kind of a high net worth, and then build your brand to attract to that lifestyle, right? So that's the bottom line of all of this, right? A lot of people make the mistake of thinking luxury means you need to have photos of you in fancy cars and getting on jets that you obviously don't own, or being out at a fancy restaurant. To a certain extent that's okay, but that's not what we're doing, right? That is flash. People with money see right through that, right? When you do that, you're attracting either clients that can't afford that lifestyle, and maybe that's your strategy, but we're not going to talk about that strategy here, or you're attracting friends, colleagues that think you're cool for having photos on a jet. Although that is so overplayed now that you won't even see people really doing that anymore. So that's the difference, right? You're gonna identify their lifestyle, what's important to wealthy people, and then when you build your luxury brand and branding, everything is going to point to those messagings, right? Like what's important to them, schools, the transportation, all this stuff, and we'll get into this in detail. That is how you position yourself, right? And that's how you really win trust with luxury clients. Okay, so I've got some bullet points on here. Some of these are really just kind of talking points. Sorry, but luxury clients hire experts, not salespeople. 100% true, right? They want problem solvers. They don't want someone that's going to sell them the home. I mean, they do. That's a part of it, a large part of it. But really, they're looking for someone. They're going to give them a problem. Hey, I want to live on the water in Sarasota, right? Based on what you know of their lifestyle and their needs, right? Some that's going to be generalized for wealthy people, and then some are going to be specific to them. They want you to solve that problem, right? So get me someplace that's close to transportation. I can join a club. I can, have spa, whatever. We'll talk about that in detail. That's what they're looking for, not just someone that's going to show them the house and rattle off things about square footage and finishes and features. It's really more than that. At least if you want to be successful and thrive in the luxury world, you need to be more than that. Anyone can sell one house, right? We had the one and done class. But what this is really geared towards is establishing yourself so that you can thrive in that marketplace. Okay. This is going to be sorry, Canva does these ads now, which is really annoying. So it messes everything up. Um, when I do that, it goes in and out of the screen, doesn't it? Okay, just me. All right, so the next slide, all right, icebreaker. So I want everyone to do this. If we don't have pen and paper, that's okay. Maybe you can just think of it. But think about one word that describes your current brand, where you are today. Um, be realistic. Don't soften this. Um, and then conversely, think about one word that you wish that it conveyed, right? Um, so, Carlo, what's your word? What are your words?
A lot of words. I'll probably say consistent.
Okay, so he says consistent. That's what it is right now, or that's what you want it to be. Okay,
And create consistency.
okay. So he would say consistent or consistency. It kind of describes him and his brand. And where do you want to go? Or are you okay with that? Or you just want to make it more consistent? And that's fine too. This isn't really a trick question.
I think that, then maybe also that's a tough question because I think that's a
I put
great
you on the
word.
spot, didn't
It's a
I?
great word.
Yeah.
It's a great, but I think also you could always be so much more.
Yeah. Okay. So just to benefit people online. So Carlo's basically saying you can be so much more than that, right? It's a good start. It's a good word. It describes, many things um, and it is. So again, I am picking on you, sorry. But consistency does matter to luxury clients, but it's not one of the most important things to them, right? Of course they want someone that's consistent. Any client should want that. Um, so right away, you know that you've got something you can improve on, right? Or maybe not even improve. I'm not coming at that from that way, but just look at it at a different angle. Um, okay, so thank you for being volunteered. So the first thing you have to do, and with all things in life, listen more than you talk, right? It's a general philosophy, although I like to blah 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 on sometimes. Um, you really got to learn, right? So before you can position yourself and your brand as a luxury agent or satisfying luxury requirements, like I said, you have to learn what do they like, what's important to them. I will tell you that luxury clients think differently, or wealthy people in general, not always, but generally speaking, they think differently, right? They have a different perspective about things. They have different priorities. They live life differently. So something that you think is important isn't important to them, and vice versa. Something that you think is, you know, silly or maybe extravagant, is a daily part of their lives, and it's very important to them. So you got to learn that, right? So um, I kind of described that here. Sorry, I'm going to talk through some of these bullet points. Um, we talked about the first one. So selling a home obviously is not just about beds and baths. Rarely, when you get a luxury client on the buy side, um, they're going to give you the basics about how big it needs to be, but they're probably just going to say, I've got a family of five. Um, we love to travel. We have people will come visit us. We like to entertain. We need a house that's on the water where I can have a boat. I can walk to the beach. I'm close to blah, 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 blah. Can you help us? Right? They're not going to say, I really want 2,400 to 2,600 square feet. I have to be in 600,000 to 800,000 with a pool. Um, they won't get into specifics like that usually. It'll be more about who they are and how they live. And then they'll expect you to solve that problem for them. Um, so you really need to be a problem solver, and that's a key point to all of this. Um, Problem solver with the home, with their transportation, with their boating needs, with every aspect of their lifestyle. If you get that position and a position of trust, they're going to start asking you for everything, right? Where should we go to dinner? Where should we do this? Where should we do that? That may sound annoying to you, but that means you've established a position of trust, right? So when there are real estate related things, they are obviously going to listen to you, right? It's like this person has now become our personal concierge, right? And again, that may sound terrible, but that's what we're in the business of, right? If you're going to get as a result of that, you're going to get a 5, 6, $10 million purchase. Listen, I'll drive you around, right? You let me know what I need to do, I'm going to do it for you. And that's really what they're expecting from their agent. Okay, so let's talk about some of the different priorities, right? I didn't list all of them, but in my experience, I listed the ones that I've seen the most, right? So if they have children, um, and we're talking school age children, they really care about schools, right? And they don't care about the public school and what rating that is and whether they take buses or drop off. And it's really more about private schools, academies, things like here locally, there's IMG, there's Outdoors Academy. There's some really high-end schools up in the Tampa area. If you have an athlete or you want them to be an athlete, you're going to send them to IMG and you're going to pay 90 grand a year, to do that sort of thing. Or ODAs, 25,000 a year, and they're going to be in second grade. And you're like, why would I pay 25 grand a year for a second grader? This is what they do, and that is second nature to them. Because they for the most part they do not trust the public school system, or that's how they were raised, and they want to do better for their children, so they're going to put them in, that academy or Catholic school or whatever it is. So schools are very important. Transportation to and from the schools. Do they have a bus? Do I need to drop them off? Is my nanny dropping them off? How far away is it? Right. So, like ODA, they have several campuses, right? There's one on Siesta Key, that's their lower campus for elementary kids. And then out towards Lakewood Ranch is their middle school, high school. And I think they're building another. You need to know that, right? If you don't know that, they're going to ask the question and they're going to look towards you and you're going to fumble. And you're right. That's okay. I'm not criticizing anyone. But if you have that information handy, again, you're building trust, right? Because that's going to be one of the first things they talk to you about, the schools, if they have school age children. If you're there ready with answers, they're going to look to you towards other things. Transportation, another big one. So not just how long does it take to get downtown? That's useful, but anybody can figure that out. But how long is it to get to Sarasota, right? Are there black car services? They a lot of these folks don't use Uber. We don't really have Uber Black here in this market, but there's an Uber Black service that is just, basically used to be Black Car, and now they do that sort of thing. But there are private services where you get the same driver. They know your routine. They greet you with your coffee. They grab your bag. It's a whole thing, right? They're interested in that. They are interested in charter, charter stuff. So we'll talk about this in a second. Just put a side note there. And then, where are they serviced, right? Where are their direct flights out of Sarasota? You don't need to know all of them, but it would be helpful to know that there's 3 flights a week that go to Toronto, off season, in season, it increases to 5, just kind of major areas like that. It's helpful to know that, or at least know how to figure that out pretty quickly. Lifestyle recreation, I kind of lumped a bunch of things in there. Marina access, again, if they want a boat, if they desire to have a boat, they're going to buy a boat. And if they're going to buy a boat, a great way to get adjacent income is refer them to a boat broker. We've got several here in Sarasota. Refer them to them. They'll give you a referral fee, and then they take them through the whole process of doing the boat, the slip, the rentals, all that stuff. Things like private golf clubs, you should have a good idea of what clubs are the best, what are more designed towards, let's say you're a serious golfer, where should they play golf, right? You're never going to send them to the Longboat Key Club if they're a serious golfer, because for one, it'll take them 6 hours to play, and it's a different demographic there that just kind of hits the ball around, and that's fine. But if they're serious, you would send them to the Founders Club, right? It's exclusive club, very high membership fees, caddies, that sort of thing. So again, you may or may not be in the golf. It doesn't matter what you do. But these are the kinds of things that you need to start thinking about. And all this stuff is easy to learn and free, right? You just Google it, you go there in person, you get a feel for things. Um, Amenities, that's where we kind of get into more of the retailer stuff. If you really want high-end stores, you're going to go up to Tampa International Mall. They've got all the kind of the high-end brands there. There's a Saks at the Sarasota Mall. Just kind of that sort of thing. Again, I think I might have bought a tie in Saks at some point, and that was like $200, but I'm not going into Saks. But generally speaking, I know Saks, right? There's, you go in there and there's personal shopping concierges. There's a nice place for lunch. You can make a whole a day out of it. Dining and entertainment, not as much here. There aren't really clubs here. There are social clubs, right? So there's things you can belong to. There's yacht clubs. There's obviously country clubs. Some of the better restaurants, that's always one, right? If you're, let's say you're on Longboat Key and they want to know where do I get it? Where do I eat around here? Like, where do I go to get something nice, right? You know that there's like basically one or two options on Longboat Key. Otherwise, you're going downtown, and you don't need to know every restaurant. But let's say you throw out three restaurants that you think they'll have a great meal at. Because if they're in town looking at homes, part of what you want to do unsolicited, just say, hey, if you don't have any plans tonight, I highly recommend going out to dinner at, whatever the restaurant is. And again, that just continues to establish a position of trust. Now, make sure it's something nice. Like, don't send them to, something that's terrible. And they're like, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He sent me to, whatever. Um, Travel. Okay. So, won't get into this too much, but you got to learn how they travel because travel is very important to wealthy people. Really, time, but how much time they can spend doing personal things and non-productive things and with family is very important to them, right? So, not that you need to have ridden first class somewhere, or had that whole experience, but you should at least know about it, right? Know that the airport, it's a smaller airport, so they don't have first class flights that fly to London, right? You're gonna have to connect somewhere and that sort of thing. But just learn that lifestyle. When they go on vacations, they don't like a thing that we think about is going to Disney, right? Maybe they say they're going, oh, we're gonna look for homes and then we're gonna go to Disney World, right? When they go to Disney World, they're doing a VIP experience, right? So they meet someone at the gate, and then that person takes them on every single ride. They're first in line, You need to just kind of know that, and not really because you're going to talk about that, but you at the same time you don't want to talk about you don't want to throw a joke in about how long it is to wait in line at the Dumbo ride or how terrible it's going to be at the parks. Like, it is never terrible for them at Disney because they get in, they have their meals provided, they're in the first, it's a different experience. So you just need to like know that that's you know that they play by a different set of rules. um, okay, so what's missing from this list? What isn't on there that a lot of people would just assume is important to rich people, to wealthy people? Flashy stuff. Yeah. Thank you. Carla said flashy stuff. Um, Cars, right? Unless they're a car collector, then that's different. But yeah, they've got nice cars. So what? Everyone that has money has nice stuff, right? They wear a nice watch. They have nice clothing. They may or may not own a jet or have a membership into a partial ownership or one of those like clubs. Um, they don't care about that. If you look on there, first of all, they probably don't have social media. And if they do, it may be like like the spouse might have it, and it's really just to kind of keep in touch with family and friends. But if they do, they're not going to have stuff like that, right? They're going to have pictures of their family and on vacation, and because that's what's important to them, right? It's not about the car and the jet. Now, if you're trying to attract a different audience, right? Then that's when you do that stuff. Or if you're trying to, like the company Living Vogue is trying to attract agents, right? So we may have some of that flash in there because agents love flashy stuff. Who doesn't, right? I wear Gucci sneakers all the time, even though I'm wearing a polo shirt, right? So I'm a victim of it myself. But from them, that stuff's not important. So You do not need to know about the latest and greatest, whatever the current prices of Rolexes, right? And how that market has gone up and down during COVID. Like that's interesting to you. They don't care. A Rolex is just another watch to them. So, okay. So different needs in housing. So this is a big one. This is the one that took me the longest time to kind of wrap my head around. Um, So we talked a little bit about, they're not going to give you facts about I want this size, this many bedrooms, has to have this. They are going to demand space, right? So I generalized this here. So they want large rooms, right? If they ever walk into a home and there's a guest bedroom that's 12 by 14, they will they will not choose that house because there are small spaces. So every room needs to be large. Um, to include the closet. We'll talk about that. Something as silly as the closet space. More rooms, right? The more, the better, right? Extra buildings. They really like privacy. I don't have privacy on here, but it's kind of an overwhelming theme here. Um, if they have a nanny, a live-in nanny, or let's say they have a house manager, and yeah, some of these people have house managers that live at the house and they run everything. They run all the systems of the house, the repairs, the maintenance, the upkeep. Um, they want that person there, but they don't want to live next to them or with them, right? They don't want Fred to walk down to get a snack at midnight, to walk through the family. That's just never going to happen. So they want separate spaces, extra buildings. If the nanny's there, they want to have a guest house. If they have guests, they want a guest house. So different things. You cannot have enough extra buildings on a luxury property. Literally, you could have 40 different buildings, and they love that. They love the compound sort of feel. Closets. This is one that like just surprised me. Um, but I put it on here because it's a good example of a different way of thinking. They have a lot of stuff, right? Just wealthy people in general. They do, right? Even though it's not hugely important to them, they've got their bags and their shoes and all their wardrobes. And men have you go in and there's 30 different suits, and they all look navy and black to me, but they're all different, right? Um, they want space for that, right? And um, they want that to be an experience. So when they wake up and they whatever they do, whatever their routine is, eventually they're going to get dressed. That's an experience, right? So they want to feel like they are selecting things out of a shop. And that's why a lot of these closets in these really high-end homes look like you're in, a boutique shop, right? They've got glass front things and, their bags are up on display almost like it's a museum because they want an experience in all things in life, but especially things like closets. If it has a small closet, and I've seen this time and time again, they will dismiss the house, right? Or they will want an extra bedroom somewhere. Hopefully, it's next to the master bedroom that they can make that into a closet and they'll deck the whole thing out. Um, Ensuite baths, every single room has to have one. If there's ever a standalone bath and it's not just a powder room somewhere, um, just makes no sense. Right? And most luxury designs, you won't even see this. Every bedroom will have its own private bathroom. And again, it's all about privacy. Um, Security. Okay, so this is a big one too. So with wealth comes generally a desire for privacy and security. Um, if you're on the beach and there happens to be a public access point next to the house, forget about it. That house will lose 10 to 20% in value because of that. Because they don't want Joe Schmo to be able to walk out to their beach and basically put their lawn chair up out front of their house, right? They want security, privacy, things like gates, walls, security systems, all that stuff that is, sounds cool. And a lot of this has trickled into more of the average, I'll say average, $1 million buyer. Um, like that's not wealthy as well, but a different class. But at that level, it is a must, right? And if the home doesn't have that sort of system, then, and we'll talk about this in a second, the service, you need to have a service provider that comes in knows how to install all the closed loop cameras and systems and, touch pads and safe room things and all that stuff. And there's several here. You need to be just be ready to talk about that sort of thing. Okay, and then boating. So, oh, I switched right when you turn that off and on. um, Sorry, guys. My camera locked up on me. Okay. You guys cannot see me, can you? Can you see me at all? All right. Let's see. Sorry. I knew there was going to be some snafu at some point during this. Let's see if I can just share the screen and talk off of that instead. Okay. All right, maybe turn the camera on and off again to see. All right, so boating. So boating is very important here in this market, at least. So when you talk about boating with clients, this is an area that you can research and should research, and you just need to know a lot about things like lifts and docks and davits, seawalls, at least know the names and definitions of those things, pylons, things like that. Um, they're going to want to know depth of water, right? We just saw this on an open house that we did for a luxury property. Um, if you can have things at your command, kind of general things like how much water, how deep does a 60-foot yacht need to go? Things like that. Sorry, my screen just went off completely. Just trying to figure this out, guys. It's going to be annoying until I figure that out. Don't want that one. The cam link. Okay. Okay. There we go. All right. So sorry, things with boating again. Learn as much as you can. Learn, the difference between a rip wrap. I think rip wrap's the right word for it. Seawall, a concrete seawall. How long those things last. If there's a problem, what do they generally do to repair those? Like seawalls, it's always about the area behind it getting washed out, and then that thing loses structural integrity. Or there's rebar in there and that stuff rusts over time and then it cracks all the concrete. Um, just kind of a lot of this you'll pick up over time, but if you just Google, you can read about all that stuff, right? A seawall costs about $1,000 a linear foot to replace. So if you've got a big home, with 100 square foot on the water or 100 linear feet, that's right away, it's going to cost 100 grand, 150 grand to replace a seawall. It's a big chunk of money even for wealthy people. Like they don't like spending money when they don't have to. So just general things like that. Or if you're on a canal, you're allowed to have your boat out to 40% of the canal width is allowed to be occupied by the boat. Um, Again, you're just showing or you're trying to show that you are an expert, right? Or at least some of the details, because then they're going to go to you for everything else. And that's what you want at the end of the day. Okay. So financial behavior. So this is another one that people make a big mistake on. They think because people are wealthy that they need to know, you know, every single thing about how to get rich and how to be wealthy and all their investing, all the gimmicks, I guess I'd say. Um, You don't need to know that, but you should be vaguely aware of like how the stock market's doing, where are bond prices, just general things. I'm not saying you need to like read Forbes or whatever these, market watch on a daily basis, but kind of know where that stuff is. The one up top is very important. They don't talk about money. It's never a money thing. Now they will have a budget. Even if someone says they don't have a budget, everybody has a budget, right? So that is a lie at the end of the day. They will have a budget, but they're not going to talk about it as much, right? Again, you're trying to solve a problem for them. If you can get that in a $5 million house, great. if it takes 10 million, right? You present both those options and let them be the one that figures out what's in their budget, unless they tell you, and some will tell you that. Um, Learn what they do in general terms without being nosy, right? How'd you make your money? Never ask that, first of all. Um, and then kind of have a general understanding of that, right? So let's say that they are business owners, or they was a physician, is retired, or an attorney, or whatever, or just have our trust, have had a family trust, and that's all I got from my family was debt. So I can I wish I had that sort of situation, um, but learn that so you can become familiar with some of those terms, right? Not if they're physicians, you don't need to know about like doctor sort of things. Um, but it just helps if they're a business owner and they're in the tech world, maybe you look up the company and learn a few things about what the company does so that during a casual conversation you can interject if it's appropriate with some of that sort of stuff, right? If they're talking about their business on the side, you have an opportunity to make a connection based off of what right? Maybe the products they sell or something like that. Okay, this is a big one. So if tax implications, right? Wealthy people do not want to spend money. They don't want to pay Uncle Sam, right? Nobody does, but especially the wealthy. It's a game to them, right? It's all about the game of shifting things around to try not to pay or have as small a tax burden as possible. Um, so obviously we don't have state income taxes here yet. Um, you got to know about 1031 exchanges at a cursory level. So just know enough that if somebody says, hey, I've got an investment property that I'm selling, I want to do a 1031 exchange with the new vacation property I'm buying. Um, so know what that means, right? Basically, they're going to take the money they made on one property, sell it, and then put that money into the new property, right? And when you do that and you're not living there, um, it's difficult, but or no, it's not difficult. But basically, that transfer of money means they can avoid paying taxes on the money they made on that one house. If they're going to dump it into a new one, they don't have to pay capital gains on that, right? So again, you'll learn that over time, but just understand what a 1031 exchange is, know what capital gains means. Um, Wealthy people are always paying capital gains, right? It's basically a set tax that's just boom, it hits them and they're like, oh, this is terrible. So just know that and kind of understand it. Um, and then a big one here is homestead exemption. So why would wealthy people care about the homestead exemption? It lowers their taxes. They do not care about that.
No.
Don't care. Why not? Think it through. So your homestead exemption allows you a $25,000 credit on your property, on the assessed value of your house, right? They're going to knock 25 grand off of that per person. If it's a couple, it's a $50,000. Does that move the needle for these folks? $50,000 or less? It might, right? I don't want to dismiss that. The more important part, go ahead, Tom. Sorry. Yes, it protects them from a liability standard. So besides the tax implications of homesteading a property, it allows the property, it cannot be taken away, right? If Tom does something terrible to me and I sue him and I cannot, even if I win whatever X dollars, right? That does not include his homesteaded property. Tom is allowed to live in that with his don't tread on me flag as long as he wants. That the only thing that can take that away is Uncle Sam if you don't pay your taxes, or your mortgage holder, right? If you've got someone holding the deed on the property, obviously they can take it away. Um, so that's huge because wealthy people are always getting sued. They just are, especially if they're working and they're in a medical field or attorney or something like that. They're always getting sued, right? So the ability to shelter a property is very important to them. So it's one part of the homestead exemption that you should learn about. It's why, so OJ Simpson lived in Florida, right? Even though he was broke, right? Who knows if he was broke? He had a beautiful house because they could not take that away from him, right? He still owed those poor people whatever, hundreds of millions of bucks, until the day he died. So that's I know it's a terrible example of the homestead exemption, but it just kind of illustrates things. Okay. Um, so now that you basically, okay, so again, this is high level, right? So once you understand what's important, and I listed some of them, but you can kind of figure this out intuitively once you look at it from a different perspective. You need to then position yourself so you are all things their needs, right? Get away from the flashy, get away from the, all that sort of current trend of Instagram wannabe influencers. That stuff is great for other stuff if you're selling product or whatever. But if you are a luxury agent, that is not how to go after wealthy people and attract them to you. And social media is just one aspect of it, but we're going to get into this here. So, okay. Um, all sorts of bells and things are going off. Okay, so I have this, and it's a terrible thing to say about my colleagues, but so most agents think they have a brand, but really they just kind of have a logo and a bunch of listings or stuff or open house posts and whatever. Again, this is specific to social media. So I always recommend the first thing to do is to start with your story, your backstory, right? Why is that? Why would a wealthy person care about you and where you came from and what you do? Um, Somewhere in that experience, you're going to figure, or there's going to be something that they will be able to connect with you on. This is key, 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 key. I can't stress this enough. Um, you're going to have something in common, right? I don't care how wealthy they are. I had clients that literally were billionaires. My connection to them was the fact that they loved to travel. I love to travel, right? I've been to a lot of the I've traveled a lot internationally. So a lot of the places they go, I've been to. Now, I don't necessarily stay in the same places they stay when they go to places, but I can relate to, I was on safari in Africa and it was great. It was a huge, great experience. And, someday I hope to bring the family back and all that stuff. Um, so that's how I usually connect, right? Or I've been all over the country as well. So if they're from San Francisco, my prior life, I used to have an office in San Francisco. I know all about the wine country. If they're in Toronto, I used to have an office up there. I know all, that sort of thing. I can usually connect. If they're from Idaho or South Dakota, I'm screwed. I've got no connection at all. And that's me. That's not you, unless it is. But find something where you can relate, whether it's your love of an activity, a sport. I listed some things on here: travel, investing, family, right? Who doesn't love their family, right? That is, at the end of the day, well, some people don't love their family actually, but um, sorry, it's terrible. But your connection to your family, you will share a lot of those same needs and desires, right? Different level, of course, but that's one way you connect, right? Hey, I also have school children. This is important to me, right? Again, you're not relating to the fact that you're going to spend 25 grand a year on ODA or something like that, unless you are. But you're finding that one area where there's common ground, right? And your backstory needs to include that, right? And I'll warn you to stay away from things that are politically motivated or religious. Um, it's just, for me, it's always best to just don't share a response either way. You have your own personal beliefs, right? Now, unless that's you. If that's your brand, then do you. Like if that works for you, then I'm not saying not to do that. But if you're a religious person, don't necessarily connect to them on a religious basis, right? Even if you think you're safe in doing that, sometimes that conversation can get misconstrued. Um, So build your backstory, make it appealing, right? If you know, Google this, learn the art of storytelling. It's all of the, like it's structured, or go on Chat GPT and put in some information about yourself and say, tell a story about me, right? And then learn that. And then that is your pitch. That is your, this is who I am. This is why it's important. And that needs to be part of your repertoire, right? Just be able to reference that. Um, you know, whatever aspect of your life. And I'm not saying you need to get into like, oh, I had this terrible upbringing, and um, so use some common sense with it, but build your story basically, and then find a way within your story to connect to those people. Okay. So on the other side, so your visual identity, you really, and this is more on the digital and to a certain extent the print stuff, but really, figure out what you're going to look like, right? Colors, fonts, photo styles, layouts. I know that this sounds daunting and you're like, well, this is just too much. Just take on a little bit of this at a time, right? You can easily coordinate everything in the same color, right? So all of your social media stuff is going to be in the same color. All of your print stuff is going to be in the same color scheme. That's just one example, right? Any sort of stories or blogs that you have out there, it's all kind of standardized. What you don't want is different things, right? So if I log on to your Facebook, you're this, and then your Instagram's over here, but yet I get a piece of mailing from you and it looks like this. And then when I see you in person, it's like, who's this person? All that stuff needs to match, right? Consistency. I think that was your word, wasn't it? Consistently, Carlo. Um, so tell the same story. If someone Googled you, what would they see? Some of you like, uh-oh. That's all right too. Build new content, right? Um, no one's going to fault you for who you are, and we'll say your past life. We were all young at some point. Even Charles was young at some at some point. Um, yeah, whatever, but just be consistent, right? And do this. And this is going to be one of the exercises. Literally Google yourself, see where you show up, right? How did I get on this site? I have no idea why I'm on this, right? How come I'm not on this, right? Google another agent that you know that's kicking ass, here locally, or whoever. See where they show up, right? Now, there's some people that have been doing this long enough that it doesn't matter, right? That their brand was built 30, 40 years ago, and they're able to continue to build it, based on those old things, and that's okay. But if you're new, especially if you want to break into the luxury world, you're going to have to create some of this stuff. Okay. Um, they will check your online presence, right? So if you, let's say they inquire, you get a cold lead about a house, they want to go show a $5 million house, right? And they know they're going to meet you, right? You did your follow up, you've made the appointment, you've called them, whatever. Um, they're going to Google you. They probably will. They'll see about you, or they'll stick you in Instagram or Facebook and just kind of learn who is this random that's going to meet me tomorrow, and I'm going to entrust this person with my family's needs. Um, or if they're making a selection, let's say they're actually doing research, or they get referred to you, or they walk by and they see one of your listings out there and they really connect with you. They see your photo, Carlo, and they're like, that guy looks like he knows what he's doing. They're going to Google you. Probably. If they don't, then great. But if they do, what are they going to see? Right. So all that stuff they see needs to kind of match with your new brand that is attracting them based on their desires and needs. Okay, I put a few examples here. So Instagram, that's an easy one. Is your bio clear? Is it confident? Is it luxury aligned? Again, if you don't know how to do this, put it in Chat GPT. They'll spit out a bio for you, cut and paste it. This is a constant theme with us, is using AI. Um, to a certain extent, if you know Instagram, your grid is like the alignment of all your tiles of things. If that looks like somebody threw up, pizza in the morning, all right, can you work on that? Can you make it look more visually appealing? Can you from this point on, use a standard color scheme so that every post is going to have black and gold and red or navy, whatever your scheme is, so that when you do look at it, it's visually appealing, right? People like to work with people that they like and that they go down there and they're like, oh, this is nice. Again, it's nice to them because they're seeing things they can relate to. Maybe you do have some property stuff on there, but it's all kind of aligned with you and your brand. Okay, YouTube. Who does not have a YouTube channel? Who's not willing to admit they have a YouTube channel? You don't have a YouTube channel? You don't really need a YouTube channel, do you? Yeah. Okay. Is it hugely important? No. But again, it's one of those things that if someone Googles you, especially truly Googles you, not just goes on, Yahoo or Bing, videos is one of the first things that shows up, right? So if you have a video of yourself out there, it's going to be one of the first things that shows up. So I always recommend at least starting a YouTube channel and throw up one video, even if it's just a welcome video of you in the studio saying, hey, I'm Mark, blah, 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 for 30 seconds. Put that on there. Um, so when they do Google you, if you've got some say shady stuff that you did in the past, right, that's gonna supplant it or whatever the word is for that. So I can walk you through that, and we'll have a class more on the technical side of things in the future. But you do YouTube. Okay, website. So if you have a website, whether that's the KV Core or you have an old, a Wix site or GoDaddy or something like that, same thing. Does that match your brand? Does it have the same colors? Does it have the same kind of content that is wealthy client focused and not you focused? Or sorry, I shouldn't say it that way. You, but in ways that is important to the wealthy, right? Education, family, security, all those things we talked about. Um, okay, so that's just kind of a check on kind of where you are. Okay, so offline, not everything's digital, right? There are probably more luxury agents that don't even do Instagram or YouTube or any of that stuff, right? They rely on a brand they built before all that stuff was relevant, or their demographics just don't care about that. And that's partially true with luxury. They're not necessarily spending time on Instagram. So to them, it's more of an offline. And by offline, I mean who you are, right? Your style, your wardrobe, your car, all of your written stuff, right? So your booklets, your templates, your buyer's guide, your listing appointment, all that stuff. We talked about the pre-listing, uh, you know, the booklets and the book and the box and all that crap you put together. What story does that tell? Does that show that you're luxury? Right? Or are you dropping off, a pamphlet that was obviously a cheap Canva template that you just kind of stuck some stuff in? That becomes a reflection of you. So get that all on point too, right? If you're doing the digital, make sure the rest of your stuff all matches. It's the same color scheme, right? Generally speaking, black, white, deep colors like a navy, like a deep blue or a deep red. Those things, gold, silver, they all kind of have luxury overtones generally, right? Stay away from unless this is you and you're not trying to get luxury clients, but you don't want like a bohemian sort of, light neutral. That stuff works for a different client, right? Wealthy want to feel like they're kind of enveloped in this rich sort of environment. I don't know if I'm describing that well or not, but okay. So your persona, some of this stuff you can work on, some of the you can't. Confident but not arrogant, right? If you're an arrogant person, for one, you're never going to know that, or you're not going to believe it, right? It's really kind of hard to tone that stuff down. Listen more than you talk, says the guy that talks all the time. Solution oriented. Okay, so this one you can do, right? Come at it from a solution position, right? If they're asking you a question, or let's say they're looking at something and they're trying to figure out, you know, how could we redesign this outdoor kitchen? Um, don't solve it on the spot, but say, hey, I've got someone that can, sit down and come up with a design. Let me feed you that information. We're done, and then you guys can, talk to them if it's still important to you, like that sort of thing, right? Always solve problems. Okay, communication style. this is tough too, right? And listen, I make up words all the time. Um, but generally speaking, speak slower, be very clear and articulate. Um, if you think about that, then you're able to do it. If you don't think about it, you're going to revert back into, how we talked, where we grew up in high school, and before you know it, um, whatever. So, again, just some things in there. I know that that's difficult. Your wardrobe, this one, people, your wardrobe in your car. People think you need to wear a suit if you're a guy, right? Or this really nice business attire. Um, You don't have to do that. Just have yourself put together. Don't be flashy, be understated. What you don't want to do, you want to show up and you don't want them to remember you for what you're wearing, right? You just want to kind of blend, be there, right? Same thing with your car. A lot of agents, especially when they get their first deal, they'll go out and they'll buy a new, Mercedes or whatever. Now if that's you and listen, who doesn't like nice stuff? I have a nice car. I get it. It's not important to them. So get that for you. Don't get that because you think you're going to attract wealthy clients. You don't need to drive the same car as them, but your car needs to be clean. It needs to be put together. It needs to be organized. Like all the stuff that conveys to them that you've got your shit together, that's how your car needs to be. Right. So obviously don't try not to drive a clunker around. But if you've got a, you know, a Honda, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Just make sure it's clean, organized, smells nice. They're probably never going to get in your car. Um, but you may go back to the car to grab something and may see like just if you open the door and like McDonald's stuff falls out of the thing, right? That does not set a good impression, right? But again, you don't need to have a fancy car to go on fancy listing appointments, to go on buyer appointments. They will care less about that and they will focus on you and your expertise. Um, okay. So what you leave behind speaks for your brand. And this is very important as well. Oh, goodness. As soon as I do that, my camera went off again. Do you mind flicking that on and off? Okay. Um, so what you leave behind speaks for your brand. I think it might just be the power on this time. Um, So obviously take advantage of this office, right? This is again, not to toot my own horn, but it's a little different, right? So if you have a client and they want to meet somewhere, right? Rather than meet at some random place, bring them here. They'll have a good first impression of you because of the style of place that you work at, right? Closings, same sort of thing, referral appointments, all that sort of stuff. Take advantage of what you're given. Um, if you're on Zoom and this isn't, I'm not beating anybody up here, but have a quality setup, right? Even though you can't see me at all right now, which is killing me. But have something nice in the background or do a background that that you can import backgrounds or use their backgrounds that makes it look a little more upscale. Print materials, same thing. So all your brochures, all that stuff we talked about, don't get cheap things, right? There's lots of great templates from EXP. Use those. If you become an EXP luxury member, they have awesome things to use, right? So utilize that stuff to its full ability. In many ways, that is, the big like why you should join EXP luxury is to take advantage of those um, sort of things. I'm gonna try and get my video back up here, quick, guys. It's like my whole thing just locks up on me. Literally, my screen is locked right now. Okay. Your client experience and touch points, right? So this is one, and we talked about this. Um, custom thank you cards, personalized listing presentations. I talked about the wax seal, all that sort of stuff. Um, Leverage that as much as you can. Again, that's going to speak for you and your brand when you're not around. Um, I won't talk into the pre, really it's the big pre-listing stuff that we talked about. So go review that class. Um, and then handwritten notes. Um, I'm terrible at this. Like my handwriting looks terrible, but go back to old school and use handwritten notes. Put it in the mail. No one's doing that, right? If you meet a client, even if you don't win the presentation, send them a nice thank you note at the end, right? It'll set you up for success in the future. Okay, I kind of do a shameless plug of EXP luxury things and all where they advertising. Um, Again, these are different colors, but it all kind of looks the same, right? And now these are all different brands as well, so it's really hard to kind of control what different brands do. Um, but that said, these are all luxury brands, right? So if you look to the right side of the screen, all that stuff kind of has the same rich feel to it. Okay. So the last part of this is elevating the client experience, right? So you've taken a look at your brand, you've written your story, you've learned about what's important to the wealthy, things like family and security, transportation, and then you've changed your content to look more like that, right? So you've got some stuff of your family in your online presence. Um, or you've done a post that talks about IMG and why they would go to IMG, or maybe you did a blog about IMG. Not many people are doing blogs nowadays, but again, it's a good way to get your presence out there online. Um, or transportation, right? You've learned that Sarasota has a really nice private transportation or a private jet sort of service, um, where you check in, it's all catered, they literally take all your stuff, it's completely white glove. But you may not know about that, but go over there and shoot content. They would love for you to walk through there, right, and shoot a video of that sort of thing and post it, right? That's what people are going to be attracted to, the wealthy, from your digital presence, that sort of thing. They don't want to see you in front of a fancy car that's parked out front of the mall in the like ballet line. You're standing in front of it. Could not care less about that. Okay, so you've done that, and now you're going to elevate your client experience. So you got the brand. Now you gotta talk the talk and walk the walk, right? So become that agent. Become the agent that provides concierge level service. So when you're on appointments, you're thinking about, okay, I know this family's here for the weekend. I'm going to suggest a place they can go to dinner tonight. Maybe it's family friendly or on the water. What are you doing tomorrow? Oh, you want to go to the beach? Well, I would go to this beach because this had, whatever that is, you're curating an experience for them while they're here. Um, or if they're in Idaho and they're trying to get down here, talk to them about flights. Hey, there's a few flights that have direct options. They're not really good because you got to connect, whatever that is. Be that like concierge level person. Um, Luxury is not flashy. We talked about that a lot. Um, have as many touch points as possible, your branded folders, all your luxury packaging, your surprise delight things. What do they call them? Surprise and delight strategies. I learned that new. Um, that's like what things you're doing that no one else is doing, like the handwritten thank you cards. Maybe if they come into town, right? And again, this is all budget based, right? So some of this stuff does cost money and you can't just go, spending a lot of money. But if you get a client that's going to look for $5-6 million homes, they're checking in at the Ritz-Carlton, call the Ritz, have a bottle of champagne waiting for them with a little note that's from you that says, "Welcome to Sarasota for the weekend," right? That's going to cost you $100, whatever. I don't know, maybe more than that. It is going to create a lasting impression because that'll be their first experience of you. Wow, this person has a bottle of champagne on ice waiting in my room when I got here, It's the small things like that that they will gravitate towards. Okay. Um, So this is kind of a summary at the end, or close to it at least. Um, Again, they don't hire agents; they want problem solvers, right? So all this stuff we talked about, your visuals, your voice, literally your voice, how you communicate, all your story, right? You worked out what your backstory is. You've got that nailed into one paragraph. You've got something in there where you're generally going to connect with luxury people, right? Whether it's sports or travel or whatever that is, or your love of something. Um, so you've got that in there embedded about you. So when they read it, they're going to say, "Oh, this person loves sports and they love, whatever that is." Um, you're consistent. Okay. It turned out to be a good word, actually, Carla. You're consistent with that same message across everything. So all of your socials, all of your written stuff you send out, your website, all that stuff is the same. Okay, so this is 100,000 foot level, and I'm right at an hour and 1 minute. But I do have some homework for you guys, and we'll send this to you as well. But I want you to write your story. I know that sounds weird, and I don't mean a bio, but write a story about yourself, something that's compelling. Um, and then determine what your brand's going to look like. If you haven't done this already, choose a color scheme, right? And then think about how that brand's going to match what's desirable for the wealthy. And if you're not trying to get into the wealthy market, that's fine. Whatever your targeted client is, do the same thing. None of that changes, right? So if your targeted client, you're trying to get people that are relocating, or maybe they're moving to Lakewood Ranch, whatever that level is, same thing. They all generally have, if you created an avatar for them, they all kind of look the same way. And I don't mean physical characteristics, right? I mean the way that what's important to them, right? Doesn't matter necessarily how old they are, their race, their religion, all that stuff. We're all human, right? So if it's really important to me to move to Lakewood Ranch, for instance, I probably have a family, right? I'm probably looking for kind of X caliber of home. So build kind of an expectation for how to sell to them and what's important to them, and then make sure your brand matches that, right? I will tell you that it's always better to upsell, right? So even if I'm not looking for a luxury property, I want to work with a luxury agent. Just do, right? Maybe someday I will, or I aspire to kind of look at those 5, $10 million homes. But my budget's 600 grand or 500 grand. Um, they're not going to shy away from you because you've built this brand that's more appealing to wealthy people. They will shy away from you if you're in front of the jet, you're in front of the car, you're in front of the flashy stuff, because then they'll think, wow, this person's out of my league. They don't, all they want to do is work with people that have Rolls Royces. So don't do that in any case. But really kind of know your audience and then target your brand towards that. Okay, so audit your digital footprint. We kind of talked about this already. Google yourself. Look at all those things, right? Do you have YouTube? Do you have TikTok? Do you have, I don't have TikTok. I'm never going to have TikTok. I'm sorry. I'm just not a TikTok person. Um, Across the board, what does it look like? If it's not what I want to portray, then change it. Like, make a point, list them. I'm going to go, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. It's going to look like this. It's really easy to do that, actually. Okay, and then work on your offline elements. And this is hard. Like I said, the confidence, Toastmasters used to be a big thing. I don't know if that's a big thing anymore. Does anyone know what Toastmasters is? You guys have no idea what Toastmasters is. That's all right. Charles, I'm surprised you don't know what Toastmasters is. Toastmasters? No. Okay. It's basically they train you for like how to speak in front of an audience, right? So it's basically a group of people that get together and they all practice getting up and having a speech in front of people. Why is that important? If you're not comfortable talking in front of people, it's going to be very difficult to be successful in this industry at all. But especially in the luxury market, where they're looking for you to provide them guidance and counsel, right? If you're just opening doors on $500,000 homes and condos, you can get away with being quiet. Um, they're not going to expect, it's a different level of expectations. So these are things that kind of work on that. Toastmasters is one of them. Although apparently I'm older than I thought I was. Wardrobe, things like that. Again, stuff you can work on. You don't need to be flashy. just have yourself together. Same thing with your car. Get it clean, get it organized. Um, all your print materials should look the same. We talked about that. And then start thinking about the extra touch points you can do with clients, sending the cards, doing the glass, the bottle of champagne, that sort of thing. If you always at every point, just in life in general, try to look at things from a creative perspective, even the most mundane of tasks. Um, just say, hey, how could I do this differently that might be different from everyone else, right? Because usually being different is a good thing, not always a good thing, but being different in a way that provides value is always a good thing in real estate. Okay, so I want you guys to work on that. And last plan, so an action plan for you guys. Put together an upgrade plan for your brand and take baby steps. You don't need to do everything. Then maybe you just update your Instagram or your Facebook with this sort of philosophies. Um, or record a video, like I said, a 30-second video that you're going to upload on the YouTube, or even, you're gonna upload it into Instagram. You're gonna pin that. That's gonna be the first thing everyone sees. It's basically a welcome to you, right? And maybe you tell your story in that post, right? Something like that. Create an elevated lifestyle post, right? Where you're reviewing a nice restaurant, or you're talking about IMG or ODA as a school, or you found out who the guy in town is that does the high-end security systems or does all the home automation systems, and go there and just say, hey, I want to do an interview with you. Can you give me, can we make a 2-minute video? And it's just your iPhone. You don't need all the fancy stuff. Or certainly bring them in here if you can. Do something like that, right? Post that content, because that is what attracts affluent people. Okay. Research and list the following on your local markets, right? So I just put some things down here. This is just an attempt to learn like what's important to them, right? If it's schools, then learn about the schools, right? If it's transportation, learn about the different stuff at Sarasota International or Tampa, what kind of car service there is, learn about that stuff. Um, and then high-end property features. So RJ talked about an ice cream bar, right? That was different. I hadn't heard that one before, right? But I have heard like ice rooms and shooting ranges, and can't really do them a whole lot here, but helipads, um, things like that. Um, think about that, right? Because one story I like to tell a lot is when I first started doing luxury real estate, I would go into a place and I would see an amazing view, right? And it was just stunning. You're on the beach, there's a beautiful view, right? They don't care about that. And it really shocked me. Like that was, yeah, it's got a view. When you're going to spend 5, 10, $15 million, that is an expectation. Of course it has a view, right? Show me a home that's 15 million bucks that doesn't have some sort of view, right? Very rare unless you're in Manhattan or something like that. That is an expectation. Certain things that we are amazed by, right? Beautiful quartz counters and soft closed drawers. Oh, like that is as mundane to them as having a rug outside their front door when they walk in to wipe the mud off their feet, right? So learn that. Um, and then what's different then? An ice room, right? So you walk in and there's a bar where you got to put on, those coats, and that's like weird to me, actually. But for those people, that's cool. Like if they're going to entertain or they're going to talk about their house to their friends, their colleagues, because that is where they'll brag, by the way. They're not going to brag and talk about money to you. But when they talk to their friends and their colleagues in their social circle, it's all about that stuff, right? Like you got that jet. I had that jet 10 years ago, right? I got this one now, right? They care about it up there, right? So if you can give them things that makes their house and their lifestyle different, like I said, shooting ranges, the ice room was one that I thought was really interesting. Even his and hers bedrooms, right? You heard about his and hers baths, right? And that even to me, that's kind of like, wow, they have separate bathrooms, but their own separate bedrooms, right? Maybe that tells you something more about their lifestyle than you'd want to know. But just things like that, right? So think about key features like that. And this is, this used to be Miami, Naples. but now Sarasota is becoming this as well. So, okay, that's my inside. So I know, again, this is high level stuff. If you can take away a few points, it is you want to be a problem solver. You really need to learn the luxury lifestyle, how they live, what's important to them, what's not important to them. And then if you are interested in matching your brand to that, then you need to do it that way. So what's interesting to them is what your brand should look like, right? And then consistency across all platforms, whether it's digital or, you know, your written stuff, how you talk, how you communicate. Okay. Any questions? No questions. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate everyone, and we'll do this again next week. Matt's not going to have a class on Tuesday, I believe, right? So next chance we get to see is next Friday morning. Of course, there are tons of stuff in between now and then. Those will all be over Zoom, so nothing in person. So, all right. Thanks, guys.